everybody, this is the Vikstrand. Transformers Age of Extinction marks the last time I saw a Transformers movie in the cinemas. I will say that there was a point in this movie towards the end where a certain character alludes to that this certain character is going to return and that this story is somehow going to continue. I could hear a pretty large section of the audience I was with groaning over it, going "ooh," rather than "ooh," which is the reaction you want to have. And when people left the screening of this movie, they looked like they had survived something, that they had endured something, not that they had enjoyed something. Not the reaction you want to have neither. And I was just grinded down to my bones after this movie. Let's take a look at what I would consider the worst movie in the entire franchise that is, pretty loathed by critics and fans already. And I will also say is the worst movie Michael Bay has ever made. And yet there are a few little moments here and there that actually works, and why this movie is not getting a one-digit rating, which it was in danger of being at one point, but it kind of fought its way back to a just bad rating, but not as bad as it looked to be, in the beginning. Let's take a look at Transformers Age of Extinction. After the Battle of Chicago, the Transformers have been labeled outlaws and are now being hunted by the CIA and the CIA affiliated, organizations, and they are being helped, to hunt down both Decepticons and Autobots alike by a Transformers called Lockdown, who seems to have some kind of personal issue, especially with Optimus Prime. So where is Optimus Prime actually, hiding? Apparently in an abandoned movie theater somewhere in Texas, where he is found by a down-on-his-luck inventor played by Mark Wahlberg. We'll get to him in a second. And once he discovers that he's harboring a fugitive, he still decides that he's not going to give up Optimus Prime for whatever reason. And Optimus Prime sees, of course, the good in man and all that good stuff, and now they're on the run from the authorities, Mark Wahlberg and his daughter and the daughter's boyfriend, and they will be soon joined by a bunch of really, really terrible Transformers. We'll get to why that sucks in a second. And in the background of this is also, CIA dude Kelsey Grammer and Stanley Tucci, who is a very rich Elon Musk dude who is, developing some kind of a thing, with the Transformers that they have captured. He's experimenting with the Transformers in order to, create some kind of new technology or, getting rich and stuff like that. And we also have something that is coming from space, which always happens in the Transformers movies, and they also allude to a thing called the Seed. What is the Seed? What is it going to do? What does it have to do with Optimus Prime? Why is he important? We shall see. And this is a very crappy movie, and I shall give you the 6 reasons why I hate this movie so fucking much. Reason number 1: 167 minutes. That is a lot of minutes to fill with, robots fighting each other and cracking bad jokes. I am of the opinion that a movie about, robots kicking the shit out of each other should be approaching 2 hours, maybe. Not approaching 3 hours. Are you insane? Are you completely mad? It's too much. And I felt, the length of this movie. Sometimes when you're having very long movies and you're just having these long, drawn-out sequences, and you know where this is going, and I begin to feel the length in me, and that is when I get really, really cranky. Reason number 2: the characters. when it was announced that Mark Wahlberg was going to be the leading man in this movie, I felt, wow, now we're getting somewhere. But unfortunately, he sucks. Apart from The Happening, I don't think I've ever seen Mark Wahlberg worse in a movie. He was fucking dreadful. And, you know, the chick who played his daughter, you know, who was in that terrible Last Airbender movie, she's about as terrible in this one. Almost everybody in this movie, apart from 2 people, is dreadful. They are caricatures rather than characters. They are so cliched and they are so boring and they are so uninteresting and they are so lame. Kelsey Grammer almost was good in this one. Kelsey Grammer is usually very, very good, and Stanley Tucci at least, you know, had some funny lines and had some kind of resemblance of a character, but everybody else sucked, and sucked hard. Ooh. Number 3, taking it up the ass from China. Now, I don't have a problem with, you know, movies like Independence Day or The Patriot or, you know, stupid movies like that says that the United States is the greatest country on earth. I'm fine with that. It's a little hokey, but it works. I have no problems with, you know, movies stating that China is the greatest country on earth or something like that. It's fine. It's corny, but it can work. What I do not like, however, is when you're doing that, but you're not doing that also. Because we're having these characters, you know, once again, number 2, the characters, who are, you know, saying when they're, you know, having this big showdown in Hong Kong that we have to call the central government, and, you know, we're having these people saying that we will protect them and send, you know, fighters and stuff like that. Couldn't you have made this movie primarily set in China? It is so blatant that, you know, you're pandering to the Chinese government and a Chinese audience. Why don't you have this movie, you know, partially set in China? Why don't you have, you know, lots of more Chinese characters? And why don't you give them more than a bunch of platitudes to spew out? And which leads us kind of into, you know, this movie being made for the Chinese market, because number 4, product placements. Generally speaking, I don't have a problem with product placements as long as it is made a little bit smart, or if they're playing with it, which they usually do in Bollywood movies, where they sort of tells everybody, hey, here's the product that paid a lot of money for this sponsorship thing. In this, it just felt like this was an extended commercial. It felt like it was just a conveyor belt of crappy products, most of them from China, and it felt like they were more important and had more characters than the actual characters. This is the one movie that I really, really hated, you know, about the product placements. In Sweden, when they do, you know, product placements in movies like Dykaren or Hamilton, it was so bad because it was so unprofessional. I would have actually preferred that to this, you know, this water and this car and this company, and I just couldn't take it. And when Mark Wahlberg slams into this stupid Bud Light truck and, you know, he's arguing with the driver and he takes a sip out of this disgusting, worthless beer out of their very nice looking, you know, blue bottles, and then tells his daughter to fetch me the alien weapon, I was just, ooh, God. Number 5, the other Transformers. It must have been some kind of a genocide when it comes to the Transformers, because apart from Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, who everybody likes except for me because I think he's lame, there are very few other, you know, classical Transformers in this movie. Instead, they are, you know, gunning for something new. And when I saw, you know, the samurai guy showing up, the fucking hound who smokes a cigar that's Transformers smoke, looking like the Sarge from Beetle Buxley, and the, you know, the blue guy and all those stuff, they look like poorly rendered, you know, characters from a bad video game. They didn't look like robots anymore. They looked like some kind of weird CGI monstrosities who didn't even have the courtesy of, you know, doing proper transformations, because even though they were kind of dumb, I still kind of had to respect them. At least all the parts from the transformation sequences made it somewhere into the robots. And I just felt that that was completely wasted. And they were so cliched. And when Hound is, you know, spewing bullets around himself, he's just yelling out some of the lamest, oldest, most abused action cliches I have ever heard. I hated him. I hated him so fucking much. And the only thing Optimus Prime is doing is spilling out platitudes and, you know, being a bit of a grumpy old man. It feels like he wants to quit this fucking series at this point. Number 6, and most egregious, the tone and the atmosphere of this movie. If they would have stopped after Transformers Dark of the Moon, or Transformers 3 as it was called in Sweden, I think we would have looked back at the Transformers as a okay trilogy. I will maintain that I'm not a huge fan of the Transformers movies. I think they're okay. I think they are, you know, dumb, big, silly, kind of entertaining blockbusters that is, you know, CGI and explosions and, you know, dumb shit. But they throw in a bunch of pretty, you know, spectacular action sequences every once in a while, and you kind of cared about the characters at least. And it was dumb and it was entertaining, but in the end it was spectacular dumb nonsense. Now they have removed the nonsense part of the equation to the whole thing, but they haven't filled it with anything good, because they're treating this like this is some kind of a new Jason Bourne movie, or this is kind of this super serious action movie that we're following. This is a movie where Optimus Prime comes in riding on a robot Tyrannosaurus Rex with a gigantic sword and leads, you know, his brave Autobots in the fight for Hong Kong. It doesn't match up. This is the thing that finally broke me, because when we're having Mark Wahlberg going toe-to-toe against these highly trained CIA dudes and, you know, kicking the shit out of them and being, you know, competitive with them, that made me go, but why though? They could have easily fixed this by, you know, saying, you know, the classical, well, this man has, you know, been in the special forces, he has been so and so. Maybe they have, you know, done that. Maybe they did that, but they didn't do it well enough. He didn't seem like, you know, that kind of a guy. And I was just, it bothered me. In some cases, this stuff bothers me. In some other cases, it will not bother me. That is if it is a good movie. A good movie, then I can forgive it for, you know, being dumb and stuff like that. But in this case, I simply couldn't do it. This tone made the entire movie so dull, because this movie is also so boring. There is so little that happens in this movie, and it takes so long time to get there. This was one of these movies where I really wanted the movie to end, but it kept going and going and going, and I was thinking, oh God, how much more of this? And I just didn't care. Now, I didn't care that much for the other movies, but they at least had, you know, fun, ridiculous nonsense sprinkled around it. And I wanted Sam Witwicky's mom to eat a hash brown and going mental. I'd much rather watch that than seeing, you know, Kelsey Grammer sitting in a dark office and brooding about what's right for mankind or some shit like that. This is not the movie to do it in. Jesus Christ! I've already said in the beginning that I am going to say a couple of really complimentary things about this movie. And I will now do that. Because in the end, when Optimus Prime rides in on Grimlock, aka, you know, the Dinobots kind of things, and, you know, were, you know, fighting and kicking ass, I thought that looked so fucking cool. That was just, I was just, wow, that was so dumb, but that is so cool. And I couldn't help but getting invested in that one. And there are action sequences sprinkled out here and there that actually works. And the other thing was, of course, that we're having a really exciting car chase. Michael Bay is very good at making car chases, and this was no exception. This was a really fun, really spectacular car chase. They can't save the movie, but they saved it from complete fuck up. Also, I forgot to mention the lack of villains. Galvatron, that kind of shows up for a cup of coffee, is boring and then disappeared, was bad. But Lockdown, he is just so uninteresting and he's so boring and I don't care. This is one of these cases where I went, why are you here? And, you know, evil government agents and stuff like that. It could have been fun. Could we have that in another movie? A good movie, for instance. This is a bad movie. This is a boring, very expensive action movie who attempts to be serious in a situation where it was impossible to be serious. But because they tried, they dragged the entire thing down with it. They threw out the baby with the bathwater, as we say in Sweden. I don't know if that is an internationally renowned expression, but that is what I felt about this movie. I never want to see this movie again. I never want to think about this movie again. I will say that the sequel, The Last Night, was a better movie, mostly because it was almost half an hour shorter. Good work there, buddy. But there is no reason to watch this movie. If you've seen, you know, Transformers and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, which I will maintain is an entertaining nonsense movie. This is a nonsense movie that was an entertaining nonsense movie. And Transformers 3, I think you can skip everything else. Bumblebee, a totally okay movie, but it is massively overhyped just because it does not feature Michael Bay in the director's chair. The movie is big, the movie is spectacular in some cases, and the movie looks kind of awesome in some cases. But the majority of this movie is spent with a very boring story, with very boring characters doing boring stuff, but they pretend that this movie is great. I'm giving this movie 18 points. When you've seen all the other Transformers movies, you've seen all the other Transformers movies. If you've seen one Transformers movie, you've seen all the Transformers movies, because the action sequences look exactly the same, only this one doesn't look as cool as the other ones because of the design of the new Transformers. This movie was essentially dead on arrival, and, you know, keep getting more dead on arrival as the movie progressed on. It was only in the absolute ending as it kind of redeemed itself a little bit, but only after a very boring and very long and drawn out and cliched action fest that missed the fest bit of the whole thing. It is a bad movie, it is a terrible blockbuster, and I never want to see it again. So which one is your favorite? My favorite is actually Transformers 3. It is still a dumb movie, but at least it had an impactful ending, and it had good villains, and they had a couple of really spectacular and really awesome action sequences. I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.